Right now, as you're hearing these words, two massive forces in the sky are locking into position directly above you, and what they are about to do has not happened in this exact way for years. Most people will go through this entire week without feeling a thing. But you are not most people. Something already pulled you here. Something you could not name. Something that whispered without using words that this moment was meant to find you. And before you dismiss that as coincidence, consider this. What if the reason you feel like something in your life is about to shift is because it already has, and you're only now catching up to what the universe set in motion long before you noticed? There has been a strange heaviness in the air lately, a fog that does not belong to the weather. It lives in your decisions, in your conversations, in the space between what you want and what you can see clearly enough to reach for. Plans have stalled, answers have dissolved the moment you thought you had them. You have been trying to move forward, but it feels like walking through water, every step requiring more effort than it should. This was not random. This was not just a bad week. Something was being hidden from you, deliberately, systematically, by the very geometry of the sky itself. Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, and hard truth, has been buried in the glare of the sun for days, made completely invisible, swallowed by light so bright that what it concealed could not be seen by anyone. And during that disappearance, confusion settled in like smoke filling a room with no windows. You felt it. You just did not know what was causing it. But now, as March 25th arrives, that invisible force is about to step directly into the most powerful position it can occupy. And when it does, everything that has been hidden will be revealed with a precision that will leave you standing very still. The Sun and Saturn are converging into an exact conjunction at 4 degrees of Aries. From our perspective here on Earth, they will appear to occupy the same point in the sky, merging their energy into a single concentrated beam of force. But this is not just any conjunction. Saturn is moving into what has been described for centuries as the heart of the Sun, the throne room of solar power, a position so rare and so potent that ancient astronomers marked it as one of the most significant alignments a planet could achieve. Saturn is in its fall in Aries, at its weakest and most humbled, while the Sun is exalted here, and radiating at full strength. When the weakest meets the strongest in the same breath, something extraordinary happens. The usual tension between them collapses, and what replaces it is not conflict but clarity of the most unforgiving kind. Now consider where this is happening. Aries, the first sign, the spark that ignites before anything else exists. Aries is the energy of beginnings, identity, the raw impulse to act without waiting for permission. It is the part of the sky that does not ask whether the time is right because it has already begun moving. But Saturn brings the opposite force into that fire. It slows everything down. It demands patience, responsibility, a willingness to think before you leap. Imagine the most powerful urge to charge forward, meeting an immovable wall that says not yet, not like this. Not without understanding why. That collision should produce frustration. But in this exact alignment, at this exact degree, it does not. It produces something far more dangerous to the life you have been living. It produces direction. This is where you need to lean closer, because what comes next is not abstract. It is about you. Saturn is going through a rebirth in the sign of identity, sovereignty, and destiny. The archetype forming here is the disciplined pioneer. This combination feels like an invitation to become a more intentional force within your own life. There may be a part of you that wants to act bold and brave, but you have been holding yourself back, halting your own vision out of obligation to others. This alignment does not care about those obligations. It cares about one thing. The difference between impulse and intention. You might feel a sudden urge to act, to finally change something that has been stagnant for far too long. But there is another presence in the room now, quieter, older, steadier, asking you to pause before you move, asking you what actually matters when the adrenaline fades. This tension between fire and restraint is not a problem you need to fix. It is a doorway you are being asked to walk through, and you're not walking through it alone. Because at this very same moment, the moon is reaching its first quarter phase at 6.67 days old, 48.21% illuminated, and it is in Cancer. The first quarter moon is always a crisis point, the moment where something that began under the new moon slams into its first real wall. In Cancer, that wall is made of emotion, memory. the deep animal need for safety and the familiar warmth of what you already know. This first quarter moon surfaces a practical tension between a new goal and the people, routines, or living situation that have to support it. You may feel something pulling you backward, whispering that where you have been is safer than where you're going. That pull is not weakness. It is your awareness recognizing that growth always costs something, and it is asking you, with more honesty than comfort allows, whether you're willing to pay. None of these forces are operating in isolation. They are threads in the same fabric, tightening simultaneously into a pattern that is slowly becoming impossible to ignore. The Sun and Saturn bring structure and unflinching clarity. The Moon introduces emotional depth, the weight of memory, the ache of what must be released, and beneath all of it, Saturn is moving toward an exact sextile with Pluto, a constructive transit where Saturn brings discipline and implementation, while Pluto brings systemic transformation that works like roots beneath concrete, slowly and silently reshaping the foundation of everything built above it. You may feel this as a moment where something clicks, not a thunderbolt, not a grand revelation, just a quiet shift in perspective where you see a situation, a relationship, or your own patterns of behavior from an angle that was always there but somehow invisible until now. And in that recognition, something begins to change inside you. A different kind of strength starts forming, not the loud kind, not the kind that needs to announce itself, the kind that is built in silence, with intention, over time. What makes this moment unlike any ordinary day is not the alignment alone, but the timing of it. It arrives at a crossing point where multiple cycles are turning over simultaneously, where energy that has been circling in reflection is finally shifting into motion. You're standing at the edge of something you cannot fully see, and you know it. Not because someone told you, because your body knows, because something in you has already started leaning forward, even as your mind is still asking whether it is safe. And in that gap between knowing and acting, a question is forming that does not want a quick answer. It wants the truth. Because as this conjunction reaches its exact peak, it begins activating layers beneath your surface decisions. It starts illuminating the precise areas of your life where your intention, your commitment, and your capacity to endure are being silently measured, not by anything outside you, by you. And this is the moment where an event in the sky becomes an event inside your chest. Not because the universe is forcing change, but because something within you has been waiting for exactly this kind of light to finally see itself clearly. The air shifts. The fog that lingered for days is replaced by something else. Not lightness, not relief. A quiet seriousness that settles behind your eyes and refuses to leave. The universe is no longer wondering whether you're paying attention. It is simply showing you what is real. And in that stillness, the first layer of something deeper begins to take shape, so subtle you might almost miss it, except that once you see it, you will never be able to look away. There is a truth rising to the surface now, and some part of you already knows what it is. You have known for longer than you would like to admit, but you kept it at a distance, not because you lacked the intelligence to face it, but because you were not yet strong enough to hold what it would mean. This is where the first genuine shift of this alignment makes itself felt. It does not crash into your awareness. It moves through you like something carried on a slow tide, and it asks one devastating question. What do you actually want? Not what you've been performing. Not the answer you rehearsed for the people watching. What is real when every mask is set aside? The Sun fused with Saturn allows no distortion. It reflects you back to yourself with surgical accuracy. In Aries, that reflection becomes ruthlessly personal. Your identity. Your motivation. The true engine behind every choice you make when no one is watching. You may begin to notice fractures you had been stepping over for months. Moments where your actions quietly betrayed what you actually feel. These are not failures. They are signals that have been flashing in the dark, and Saturn has just turned on the lights so you cannot pretend you do not see them. There is no judgment in this energy. Only honesty. The kind that does not argue or explain. It simply stands in front of you and waits. And while this is happening inside your mind, the moon in Cancer is pulling at something even deeper. Memory. Longing. The version of you that learned long ago how to survive by staying small and safe. The first quarter tension presses here like a thumb against a bruise, asking whether you will choose the comfort of who you have been or the uncertainty of who you are becoming. For a moment, neither identity feels solid. That vertigo is not a sign of collapse. It is the exact feeling of a wall between your old life and your new one beginning to crack. There is a pause here that most people rush past, and it is the most critical moment in this entire alignment. It is the space between seeing the truth and deciding what to do with it. The temptation is to immediately act or immediately distract yourself, but this energy is asking you to stay, to hold still inside the recognition long enough for it to become part of you. Because once something is truly seen at this depth, it alters the way you move through every moment that follows, even if the change is so quiet that no one else will ever notice. As this settles, the energy shifts from revelation to construction. The clarity of intention begins connecting to something more grounded, something that asks not what you want, but what you're willing to build with your own hands over time. The sun moves forward, slowly separating from Saturn, but Saturn does not release its grip. It lingers like a fingerprint on everything you touch. Understanding your intentions was only the door. What lies beyond it is the harder question of whether those intentions are backed by anything real. This next phase carries weight. Aries still wants speed. Saturn demands architecture. Ideas that once felt exciting now feel hollow without structure to hold them. Plans that seemed simple unfold into complexity that requires patience you are not sure you possess. This is not the universe blocking your path. It is the universe testing your materials. Saturn is ensuring that whatever you are about to build can survive what is coming. A realization arrives here without urgency, but with absolute clarity. Real progress was never about starting. It was always about continuing, showing up on the day when nothing feels inspired, doing the work when the fire has cooled to embers and routine is all that remains. This is about sitting through discomfort, collapsing urgency, developing the kind of self-trust that cannot be borrowed or faked. Saturn is commitment. The sun is your life force. And the question echoing through this alignment is devastatingly simple. What are you willing to endure to stay devoted to the thing that makes you feel alive? The moon deepens this, pressing the weight of responsibility closer to your chest. Hesitation surfaces. A quiet wondering whether you're truly capable of committing to something that demands years instead of weeks. That hesitation is not a flaw. It is proof that you understand what is being asked of you. Beneath everything, Pluto continues its invisible work, reshaping patterns, dissolving old structures of thought, supporting transformation that does not announce itself, but simply becomes who you are over the course of months and years. The commitments forming in your mind right now carry more weight than you realize. They have the potential to alter the fundamental architecture of your life in ways you will not fully comprehend until you are standing inside the finished room, looking back at where the first stone was laid. Distractions begin to fall away. The things that used to hold your attention feel thinner now, less satisfying. Almost transparent compared to the solid weight of something meaningful taking shape beneath your hands. Time itself starts to feel different. You stop chasing immediate results. You begin to sense that today is not just today. It is the first page of something that will take years to read. Then something even deeper surfaces. Not about what you start or what you commit to, but how long you can stay when the initial fire burns down to nothing. This is where the alignment tests your endurance, not the grinding kind, the quiet kind, the kind that simply asks you to remain present when the clarity fades and the road ahead disappears into darkness. The emotional intensity will change. What felt like certainty will soften into something you cannot hold as tightly. Some steps forward will feel powerful, others will feel like nothing at all. And this is the exact point where most people abandon what they started. Not because the path was wrong, because the feeling changed and they mistook the absence of fire for the absence of meaning. It is not. It is the natural rhythm of anything worth building. Saturn knows this. The moon in Cancer knows this too, reminding you that the space between who you are and who you are becoming will sometimes feel like standing in an empty hallway with no doors. Resistance arrives as small hesitations, quiet distractions, sudden doubts that seem reasonable but are really just fear wearing a different face. A strength begins to form here that has nothing to do with motivation. It is rooted in something older and more reliable. The knowledge that growth is not always visible while it is happening. That the most important progress occurs in increments too small to measure. That staying with something when it feels slow and uncertain is the most powerful act available to a human being. Pluto continues its deep, silent work, shifting how you react, altering what you prioritize, adjusting the way you carry yourself through a room. You may not feel these changes yet, but they are already rewriting you from the inside out. And then, something begins to surface on the outside. A decision you make that surprises you with its weight. An opportunity that aligns with your long-term direction so precisely it feels almost engineered. A challenge that does not break you, but instead shows you exactly how much you have already changed. The sun moves your awareness into action, but this action feels nothing like impulse. It is measured, intentional, built on the foundation of everything you have faced and chosen not to turn away from. The moon softens. The war between comfort and growth does not end but becomes something you can navigate without being torn apart. You begin to understand that transformation does not always require destruction. Sometimes it means reshaping what exists with steadier hands. Everything converges. The clarity of the conjunction, Saturn's unshakable gravity, the emotional wisdom of the moon, Pluto's silent revolution beneath the surface. They point in one direction that is not rushed or forced but undeniable. And in that convergence something locks into place. Not conclusion, a foundation. The first real layer of something that will grow for as long as you're willing to tend it. The urgency of the beginning dissolves into patience, or into trust, into the quiet understanding that what is meant to grow will grow, but only if you keep showing up. Because through every alignment, every planetary shift, every movement in the sky above you, there has been one single thread running through it all. One invitation, repeated in 1,000 different frequencies. Step into the most grounded, most intentional, most honest version of who you are, not through explosion, through clarity, through commitment, through continuing when the path goes dark. The universe forced nothing, it simply cleaned the glass and let you see. And now there is a choice in the silence, steady and real, asking nothing dramatic but everything that matters. Act with intention instead of impulse. Commit with patience instead of expectation. Continue with trust instead of doubt. This is how one moment outlasts itself. This is how a shift in the sky becomes a shift in you. What started as a whisper has become ground beneath your feet. And as the sky keeps turning, what matters now is not what it showed you. It is what you build with what you finally allowed yourself to see.